Every faith has a call to prayer. And every faith and tradition practices prayer in a different and unique way. Wasn't that a beautiful prayer we just heard in the form of a song? And thank you, Reverend Kirk, for putting that beautiful, do you call it a mashup? It was a heart opener, I think, but you call it whatever you want. Anyway, we can pray in so many different ways. Chanting, we can read prayers, internalize prayers, free prayers, hymns, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Prayers are a way we commune and connect with God. A way we commune with something greater than ourselves. And even if we don't know it, there's something in all of us and everyone, everywhere, that wants to be able to connect with something greater. Because this human existence really is about pulling ourselves from ignorance into enlightenment, from lack into abundance, from darkness into light. Wouldn't you agree? You feel that you want to get there, you want to go. And prayer is a way we use this power for good. Now we know we don't believe in a negative God, an evil God, a hateful God. We believe in a God that is good, a God that has the availability for goodness at every moment. You know, God is accessible to all of us all the time in every single moment. We just don't know it. And if God is available, and we know in our teaching we define God as love. Not as love in something else, but just as unconditional, infinite, eternal love and goodness. So if that is what we know God is, and if God is accessible all the time, then we know that those things are also accessible, right? There's nothing we can't get if we don't put our minds right, set our hearts and minds in the right place. And that's what prayer is, about aligning ourselves with goodness, aligning ourselves with things that are right and true. Now, Debbie Ford, who is the author of the book that we're using for our curriculum in our Adventure in Spirit groups, Your Holiness, she said she was in Istanbul, Turkey, and she was having a really tough time. Beautiful woman, really a light inside and out, with a lot of rough experiences, addictions in this life, and she was tossing and turning, and out her window, she heard the Islamic call for prayer. She heard the chanting. And even though she practiced Judaism, she was so touched by that call to prayer and the chanting of bringing spirit and calling. Now in Islam, they do that call to prayer 5 times a day. That is a call to remind people to stop what they're doing, pull out their prayer rug, or just stop to remember God, to thank God, and to feel blessed. And she was so attuned to that, it got her in that space. So we don't even need the prayers that we know or claim as our prayers. The prayers that connect you with Spirit are universal and for everyone, because they tap into universal truths. And I want to talk a little bit this morning about the different kinds of prayers, because if we really own them, we will be touched by what they have to say. Paramahansa Yogananda, the Indian Hindu yogi and guru, came to America in the 1920s, and he brought with him his form of prayer, meditation, and yoga. And he was here for 30 years and really changed a lot of people's minds about prayer and connecting with God. And he said, you must realize that to find God is the only goal, the only purpose for which we are here. Now that's not something just the Hindus believe. It's a universal knowing. Whatever name you call God, you don't have to call God, a universal presence, universal intelligence, infinite creativity, whatever you want to call it, spirit, the divine, it doesn't matter. But that's why we're here, to open ourselves to something more. And he went on to say, every night when you sit to meditate, pray to God unceasingly. We've heard that in the Bible. Pray without ceasing. Pray to God unceasingly and tear the silence with your longing. Now what we know, and we've heard from Deepak Chopra, that was the first time that I heard it, that God lives in the space between our thoughts, in the silence. Well, this is known here. The opening, we tear ourselves open to that which is good and right and true. The Talmud, which is the central book of Judaism, tells us, really calls us to lift our thoughts to something greater. And it says, even in the deepest, darkest night, act as if the morning has broken. Even in the darkest times of our life, when we can't see there's anything good out there at all, act as if morning has broken. Doesn't that sound like the prayers we use, the affirmative prayers, to know that good is present no matter what? I get the God bumps on these things. Now, the mystics know that prayer is a mystical union where we commingle our mind, our human mind, with the divine mind, where we mix together. It becomes a deep spiritual connection. That is prayer. The mystics of all faiths. The Sufi mystics many, many times equated this prayer in the form of dance. The whirling dervishes would twirl and twirl. I will not do it. Will twirl and twirl and twirl until they lose themselves and find God's Spirit, the divine. And they become so one with it, they're just open and available to the all that is. Now, what we know hinders, well, and just, if I thought about the Dalai Lama, I think he would say his prayer is kindness, wouldn't you? He says his religion is kindness. So every time he does a kind act, he's being the vehicle and the messenger of spirit. And the Navajos, in their songs and prayers, they would always say, I walk in beauty. So beauty, recognizing beauty, is a prayer. So there's many, 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 many different ways to pray. But what hinders the powerful prayers where we're really communing with a God of good is, Ernest Holmes said, the biggest danger to our spirituality and our prayers is dualism. How can we know a God of love if we're living in hate or looking at the world in hate? How can we know a God of abundance if we're continually thinking about lack and limitation? It doesn't work. And how in the world can we live a life of harmony if we're surrounded all the time in discord and chaos? We have to set ourselves straight first in that alignment with God. Our prayers are not about begging and beseeching or expecting God to be the errand boy. You know what I mean? Or we if you do this, I'll do this. Our prayers are so much different. But we need to know what pushes back the prayers so they're not in alignment with all the power that's available. It's when you and I reject our own worthiness. When we don't feel worthy of all the good that's available. It's when we reject our gifts or anyone else, when we live in guilt or blame or shame, we're pushing back that power that's ever available for all of us, all the time. So I'm going to talk a little bit too this morning about what we as Science of Mind, Religious Science, what we talk about, because Ernest Holmes, he felt he knew a way to pray that would create and build a gateway to consciously connect our human self with the divine. And I'm going to talk about his 5-step prayer. But Emmett Fox, who, the great spiritual leader, he was a minister of divine science, a great spiritual leader of the 20th century, huge church in New York. He said prayer is the realization of God. It's the realization, it's the opening and acceptance of God, of a power, of that power for good. And he said prayer is like a stepladder that leads us from doubt and fear into faith and possibility. You know, I heard it, I don't know where I heard this, but somebody said that the biggest problem we have is a fear that God will not answer our prayer. That's a universal fear. Fear that God will not answer our prayers. And what we know, fear, if we define it, as Ernest Holmes defines it, is a lack of faith. So what we need to do is build our faith first. And Ernest Holmes, when we have the prayer, and many of us in our practitioner work, we study these 5 steps of prayer. It's not that you always have to pray using the 5 steps, but it's what we do. So we're going to do that this morning. Number 1, the first step of prayer is you have to immerse yourself. Immerse yourself in knowing that the essence and energy of life, God is all there is. There are no opposites, only different degrees of light. And when the light is turned way down, it's dark, and we have the possibility to turn it up. So if we sit in that knowing, just know with me, just say, God is all there is. That's it, all there is. And what we say and what we teach and what practitioners practice for 2 years is to just practice until they can feel immersed in God, in spirit, and knowing that something greater than we are is right here for us. It's bigger than we are. As Ernest Holmes said, there's a power greater than we are. That power is good, and we can use it. That power is ever present. And the second step is just claiming if God is all there is, we have to be one with it. Isn't it right? How could it be anything else? We have to be one with that. So just knowing I am one with God. That's it. Just say it. And you keep repeating if you don't. We get into some flowery, beautiful languages, and some people are so beautiful and know poetic prayers, and that's wonderful, but we can just keep saying that same thing over and over and over again until we believe it, until we know it, because it's that faith that has to be strengthened. When the fear is stronger than faith, our prayers are just not as powerful. And then we get to speak. You and I know the power of our words to create a spiritual mold. Ask and you shall receive, as John read so beautifully this morning. We know that's a law, the law of cause and effect. And when we create a mold of what we want in a positive, wonderful way, we're creating an opening for Spirit to deliver what we ask for. And then, of course, as we had, this was Gratitude Sunday, and beautiful Petra gave such a beautiful opening prayer this morning about gratitude and thankfulness for all that already is. And then we release it to the infinite law of mind, to God, who knows only to say yes and amen. And we close with, and so it is. So that's the steps of prayer. That's the intellectual side of prayer. But what we know, if we want to ignite a prayer, it's got to be juicy. It's got to have passion in it. It's got to have some feeling, because words are beautiful tools and they're powerful. But when we infuse them with our passion and our feeling, they become mighty. Passionate prayers are the ones that break us open. And they don't mean they're the most wordy prayers, but the ones with the most heart. God speaks to our heart through the affirmative language of feeling. And we know it's God if the words are positive and supportive and good and true. You know, Rumi, our beautiful mystic Rumi, when he talks about dance, he says, dance when you're broken open. That means pray to God when you're broken open. Touch God when you're broken open. Pray when you've torn the Band-Aid off. Pray all the time. And you know, we never know when we're going to get broken open. I had a little experience this week. We went to Disneyland on Wednesday, the happiest and most crowded place on earth. I told the kids, this was a great day. I'm going to come back in another 20 years, but it's okay. We did have a good time. We went there, and we got there early in the morning, and we went on the rides, and we walked. We ate our lunches in line. We didn't, take time to do anything else, but it was really a fun day. And the last ride we went on, I forgot how wet you get on Splash Mountain. Dang it. Thank goodness we chose that as the last one, because we went, and I tell you, we decided we had a faulty car because we were all totally drenched. And so we decided we'd go take a picture, our last picture of the day, by a beautiful, beautiful display they had of Dia de Muertes. And so that's Deanna's favorite day. So we all go there. We're just drenched. We go to stand there, and I'm feeling happy. It's vulnerable, happy. I'd screamed and laughed more that day. It was, and in this crowd of people, crowds, comes these two beautiful young women, beams of light. And I look at them because they're just so light and beautiful, and I realized one of them was Tara's best friend and her daughter. And because I was vulnerable and open, I thought I was pretty much healed of grief. It's been a long time. But it brought up everything that I was missing. And I went and hugged them and loved them, and it happens that Heather's daughter, Sydney, knows Adam because she went to her first teen camp, and her first teen camp this year. So I looked around at my beautiful family, and I said, this is what I have, and this is what I love. And so I hugged them, and we all went out, but I could feel that I was torn open. And the next morning I called a beautiful friend. And sometimes just having somebody there for you with compassionate listening that can say, I know there's good in this, even though you can't feel it now. But that's the best prayer in the world. Thank you. A prayer like that can switch you, because even if you can't at the time know something, that's our responsibility here. We break down, we fall down, we hit things when we don't even know it. But if we have friends that can know the truth when we can't, that's all we need. Not somebody who slips into sympathy and, oh, poor you, and oh, this. No, listens compassionately because caring is important, but also opens to something more. That's what I mean about prayers with passion. It's not speaking them in the right way. It's not doing the right thing. It's about caring and loving as much as you can. So I know if we're going to take our prayers, whatever way we are, wherever we are on that ladder of prayer, and move upward, you and I need to find an internal prayer seat within our hearts. A place we can carry with us wherever we go. A place that knows wisdom, peace, harmony, truth, that can come back to prayer no matter what's going on, that can come back to love and understanding. So I'm going to invite Kirk, if you want to come up, because I'd love some music. I'd love a little music with this. And if Gretchen's anywhere present, I'd love a few little words behind this, because I want to lead us in something right now. When we started with that, feel me, bless me, feel me, touch me, bless me, heal me, that comes from Debbie Ford's book. Because she's been broken almost open so many times. It's those times when you're the most vulnerable and available for Spirit to give action and wisdom through you. When we can be in alignment, we don't have to look at what's happening, the appearances in the world. We can see beyond. We can see what's going on beyond that. And that's what I want for all of us. So I'm going to ask us, invite us. I invite you to close your eyes. I invite you, as Reverend John said, to feel the invitation of prayer, to make yourself open, to make yourself available, to be in alignment, to raise the consciousness that you are, the vibration that you are, to be above the doubts and the fears and the disappointments and the hurts and the sorrows of life, to connect with that greater good. I speak these words not just for myself. I speak these words for each and every one of us. Touch me. I know this is a holy moment. I truly know, no matter what's going on in my external experiences, that I am blessed. I know right here, right now, in this moment, I have the courage to stand in the light, to release the barriers, the restrictions I have that keep me tied up, that keep me disconnected from my good, that keeps me separate from the ones I love. I have the courage to stand in this present moment, to let go of the past, but to bring the lessons and the good and the learning and the love and the light and the joy with me, activated, alive, right here, right now. I know as I open my heart to compassion and love and forgiveness, that I'm able to forgive myself, that I'm able to forgive others, that I rise up in knowing that right where I am, God is. Right where I am, love is. Right where I am, good is. No matter what the external experience. See me. As I allow myself to feel God's presence, God's love, God's light as me, as I allow my mind to commingle with the divine mind, I become a vehicle for good in my own life and the life of others. I know that I can't possibly feel truly at one with God, with good, with love, without praying for the good of all. I know in this moment I am blessed. See me. Feel me. I am a blessing. Touch me. I am available. I accept the invitation. See me. To climb the ladder, to rise up. Touch me. To see life from an expanded view where everything is in divine order. Life is good. I say thank you, God. And so it is. As an addendum to the story, this week we never know when we're going to be called to be on the other side of a prayer. And this week I've had 2 calls from beautiful people I know that have lost a mom and have lost a child. And I've been able to be there with absolute knowing, without question, that love is eternal, that love never dies, that healing is available. And I'm also able to honor the hurt and the pain and still know the truth. We don't always know why we go through experiences we go through, but I'll tell you, if we stand back and take a look, our one job, as Paramahansa Yogananda said, our one purpose, our one goal in this life is to know Spirit, to be used by Spirit, and know that prayer is an answer in itself. I thank you all for being on this journey. I invite you each to feel your own call for prayer, the call to connect, to create that eternal seat for yourselves, and know that we are here for each other. I love and bless each and every one of you for being on this journey with me. And so it is.